It's all right. It's fine. All right, and so we are live. This is 999 Show, Talk to Me, and I'm on here with my good friend Lila, Tapestry of the Unseen, and we're going to be talking about aliens, UFOs, and mainly a little bit about Erich Von Daniken. Now, she's never read the book, but I read the book as a kid, and how there are ways in which that book, those ideas sort of transformed my life. I think I probably wouldn't be the heretic that I am if it wasn't for Chariots of the Gods. And but I had, there's a little bit of it, but he just recently passed away, and I kind of wanted to do like a little bit of a celebration of that, of the Chariots of the Gods, and how in my life how that impacted me. But ancient alien theory, and Lila is familiar with the History Channel version of it when it came out and all the different episodes in that
the little the episodes, videos, the interviews that he's done. I mean, I've watched little things like that, and it's really interesting. So yeah, but Bill really knows a lot, so this will be really fun.
Well, I do know because I've read, I think, 3 of his books. I think when I don't think I've read Chariots of the Gods multiple times, and then also like when I was younger and more of a trickster like troll like personality, we'll put it to you that way. So where, if you look at the trickster god image, and that's kind of how I kind of saw myself before my dad passed away, because I used to like to argue with my dad, but we would argue politics and all kinds of things, but I would take and absolutely mirror his argument and throw it back at him. And then just to see how long it was before he got he'd blow his stack. And
so you were the devil's advocate?
kind of like that, yeah. And then when he died, it wasn't fun anymore, and so I kind of stopped doing it. Though I did have a little bit of a resurrection of that thing about a month ago, and on my for fun TikTok page, I posted this inflammatory political post that now is like sitting at around 40,000 views. I think.
Holy
pretty
crap.
Close to it. Yeah, it's not 40. It's not 40,000 yet. But it has slowed down a little bit. By Monday it'll be about 40,000 views, and it's highly.
I'm curious. I'm gonna have to watch it.
Oh, it's not. It's just a post. It's all about. What is it about? Asking. I'm trolling a certain particular political party, and about. It was like, because during the shutdown, and they were talking about SNAP benefits and stuff like that, and the people who are on SNAP, they shouldn't be able to buy junk food and shit like that, and it was basically about that, and so, but it was the way that I phrased it, and I phrased it is in terms of, what do you think about this? People doing this with your tax dollars and your tax dollars. So it was the way that I phrased it, which was very inflammatory, which would have been how I would have done an argument in the past, or when like 20 years ago, going on to like online Craigslist forums and doing the same damn thing and being.
You fired people up. That's why there's so many views on it.
They got fired up. And so Von Daniken's book kind of is also something that I used when I was younger. And one of the things that I grew up Lutheran, and then I became a Catholic. But as a Lutheran, one of the things is when you're in a mainline form of Christianity, you get attacked by the Christian right a lot, because unless you're a Christian right, then you're not saved. And so so I just, a lot of times I just don't want to be hassled, but then I would just, a lot of times I would go in, you get a little bit of knowledge, and then you go head to head with a person, and then where you want to like show, usually it would be like how do you show that, try to demonstrate that they're wrong and you're right, because this is how these trolls, how that kind of a personality is going to do it. But what I ended up doing was I would go to the used bookstores and I'd buy a dozen copies of Chariots of the Gods at like 10, 15 cents a piece used, because that's what they were. That's in the 80s. That's what they costed. And so I would take them to when I would know that I was going to get accosted by one of these right wingers, these right wing Christians, and then I would say, "Oh, did you know that your God was an alien?" And so then I would bring out this book, and here it is, and because they would be bringing me the 4 spiritual laws thing and their tracts, and then I would just bring out this like a tract and thinking, "Oh, here, you need to read this." And go open to this page and look, yeah, see Moses and that, that was a UFO coming down, and that was this was and Moses was in the finger of God, right? Oh, that's an alien. Your God is an alien, and stuff like that, and that would be kind of how I was when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old. Yeah. Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, who created the aliens? Well, of course, God created the aliens, because we live in a created order, and so that's what I believe. But I didn't want to be accosted, and because you have your beliefs. And a lot of times, your beliefs are really personal to you. And one of the things that I've never really liked was feeling like that I had my set of beliefs and you have your set of beliefs. And I think that we can celebrate our beliefs together. And see, but these other things, of being that confrontational spirit, to me it just pisses me off, and it always has. And so that's why I would do those kinds of things, is because
that's awesome. I wish I could have been there to see their they must have turned beet red. They must have been so pissed.
Well, yeah, or then sometimes they would leave the session, and they thought, oh, we're gonna get Bill this time, but then they leave crying or something like that, and then it was like even worse when I went to.
Usually when they don't have an argument, they start crying.
Well, and things were even worse when I went spin ahead a little bit, and I was studying religion in college. I was studying, church history and theology and stuff like that. And then you would go, the Jehovah Witnesses would come by, and then they'd knock on the door, and when I was in studying this stuff, and I just, come on in, let's talk about it. And then they would be talking about something. Oh yeah, we just read about that heresy, and heresy. And I says, yeah, you're a heretic. If you want to get good with God, you got to come to the Catholic Church. Why don't you come on? You can come with me tomorrow. And stuff like that.
Oh my God.
That was me in my younger years, because it was like, okay, I wasn't an athlete, wasn't very athletic, and but I was intellectual, and I sparred intellectually, those intellectual spars, like with my dad, with my dad being politics or whatever, and yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
reason with them though. They just keep yelling. They'll just keep yelling their, their theories and stuff, or they'll start
Well,
crying.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is true, because it's like, okay, you can't, if you, the problem, I guess what it is that it's hard to, see something different when God has shown you something, when you've had an experience, and when you've seen something else, and so where I
Yes.
am, where I run on the mystic side, or the esoteric side, and where it's, about there is, or we look at esoteric Christianity, which is totally, which is a different kind of a thing, and it's not to say there is there a specific belief structure of it. Well, not really. you know it's like super highly individualized, and so where that's where you can say, well, how can I look at, let's say, do um do tarot, and then when with the tarot, I actually don't see a difference between a pack of tarot cards, using that as a means to connect and to uncover information, than it is to come to a random page in the Bible and put your finger down, and you get this piece of text that comes out of you. It's a piece of material media, and I guess it's one of those Gnostic Gospels. They kind of talked about exactly how this works. They didn't say about divination, but it's that your imagination connects into this greater consciousness, and through this your imagination, you can see. That's what you see through your imagination. And so the scriptures incite your imagination,
And
and
that's,
they
'cause you could say like prayer, right? Or the
mhm.
rosary. It's kind of like similar to divination rituals, or, what a spell crafting or manifestation. But I mean, you could see it as that, right?
Yeah, you can, and that's the thing is that that's why your religious path doesn't matter
Hmm.
for the most
Yes.
part. I mean, I mean, I think where I would see you draw a line is does your spiritual beliefs cause harm to yourself and others? And if it causes harm, then it's the wrong set of beliefs. And so if it's causing you to whatever, if you're doing animal sacrifices, well, that's causing harm to someone.
Right.
And if you're doing, if you're within your spell crafting or whatever it is, and you're causing harm, that's where I think it is where you might say that might be that would be, and or if when I talked about that next level soul episode, where maybe the
Yeah.
greatest evil is to deny a person their free will. Well, if you are, but it's not just a person, because I've extended that out, because I've seen it in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
When that wild turkey that's running around my house, and you see that there's the lights are on. With the dogs, the lights are on. You have dogs, or you see the cows, and you look in
Yeah.
their eyes, and the lights are on. Now, they may not be self-aware enough to be able to recognize themselves in the mirror, but that doesn't mean the lights are off.
But maybe it's because they've never seen themselves in a mirror. Because my dogs, I'll have to send you a picture of Wilbur, the new one. But yeah, he saw himself in the mirror and he recognizes himself now. So maybe it's because the cows haven't seen it, haven't been exposed to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they say that elephants can recognize themselves in a mirror.
Yeah, elephants are amazing.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, because when I think about these kinds of things about the animals, and we're getting, it doesn't matter if we can go back to the ancient alien theory, but we're talking about this now, and that's good. And because rabbit
You got
holes
to
are
keep me
good.
on track. You got to keep me on track. So let's go back to the chariots
Well,
of God.
no, we will, but we will. We're and talking about animals and animal consciousness, and
Because I do believe that there's more than just us in this universe. And
yes,
there's, I feel as though energy has consciousness. We're all
mm-hmm,
connected. And
yes,
I've had unexplainable, well, I've had unexplainable experiences, but I'm also a medium. I don't know if I've
mm-hmm.
told you that. So,
I
I,
have been I have been experiencing with people that I know who've crossed over, and feeling their words in my head.
yes, okay. So for years, I ignored it and I didn't, but the experiences and just having the validation from the evidence that I brought over for people that I never met before, that
Mm-hmm,
tells me that there's definitely more than just us. And there's definitely wherever, because I've seen, you know, the spirits, wherever they are, it's, what is it called? I don't even know. Would it be, because it's whenever I tune in, it's not, I'm not looking at Earth. It's like I go into another, I don't even know what it would be called. Another dimension? I don't know. But there's definitely more than us. So I do feel like there's aliens here and in this
mm-hmm.
world. But I don't know if all of his theories, of Eric's.
Well,
It
I don't know that. I think that what my feeling is that as we're, it seems as we, I think our Earth religions are headed towards a concept of God that is a monad, a one, but it's also a oneness, and you're looking at that the Brahma creation story from the Hindu creation story, and I've retold this story multiple times on this channel, but I'm using the Joseph Campbell version of the story, because Joseph Campbell was another one of those thinkers that opened my mind to different realities. Erich Von Daniken was very important, because it was a matter of, well, what if the gods are aliens? What if are you go through all these different, the smoke and all of that, but I understand how he got to that idea. One is that he, let's see, he was born in 1935, and he wrote, that book was published in 68, the year I was born, and he was writing on it for about 10 years, but he was writing about it and starting like right in the middle of the space age. And the space age started pretty much like, like right after the end of the World War II,
Mhm.
or in that time, because people were, the Germans were launching rockets. They were launching rockets with warheads on them over to England, and stuff like that, and over the, and so that the use of rockets as a military technology started in World War II. And so he was in Switzerland, and so you have these kinds of things. And so then you go into the 50s, you have Sputnik, and so and then it kind of opened up a new thing. Oh, space and rockets and things like that. And then looking at all the smoke and stuff, and the rockets have smoke, and then all these stories in the Bible and other places all around the world, it has these, it has smoke, it has things that look like rockets and things like that. And so he thought, well, maybe what if it is? I mean, how would an ancient culture, react? And then there was like a real there was like one of the examples was these in an island out in the South, not South Pacific. Yeah, it was in the Pacific because of we were in the Pacific in World War II. We were in the Pacific and we were fighting the Japanese, and there was a indigenous tribes or something that they ran across, and the next time they with airplanes and so forth, the next thing they know, the people had built like straw airplanes and hoping to attract the airplanes back. The people had built airplanes or things that look like airplanes and hoping to attract them back. And so he had read about these things and thought, oh, that's really fascinating. And it makes you kind of wonder, well, maybe these monuments and all these things that people made in the past, well, maybe they were just, these people like this, they were just trying to attract the aliens back, or the UFOs back, and the Nazca lines down in down in Peru and all these other places, the pyramids, all those.
Or where they have the apparitions, like where Mary and stuff, they started building, like they would start building stuff right where the apparition happened, right? That was one of his things that he was saying. Yeah. Just like the,
So stuff like that. And so you have, and that's kind of how he kind of came up with some of these things. And then also because he went to a Jesuit college, I think where he was like reading, they taught him Greek and they taught him Latin. So he was reading the Bible in the Greek, and so when you read these things in the original languages or near original languages, the words don't always just translate like you think they do. Right. But what I was kind of saying is that if one of the things being is that if you are going for a literal translation, and the ancient alien theory as it is taking these stories at their face value as if they were, a more literal translation like of it. Yeah. And rather than running, and whereas the critics of it would be of the theory being as well, what if it's what if it's all metaphorical? And so where I would come down in looking at things is how much I guess there are some points I do look at in thinking Bible stories are like literal memories and things like that.
With anything, it could be metaphorical or it could be really literal, right? How do we know? I mean,
you're right. Because with some of the stories, because when they come up, and then when they've come out of the oral tradition, and then they're written down, because if this is not this part here is not ancient alien theory, but if you were looking at another book, Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock, and Graham Hancock is this a British journalist. He's not a researcher. He's not an academic. He's a journalist, but he has spent his life trying to prove or to that there was a previous civilization, but mainly it's the Atlantean civilization. But his belief of what the Atlantean civilization was, that it may not have been like this advanced super civilization, flying cars and things like that. It may have just been a Stone Age civilization. And when they uncovered Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, that kind of vindicated his ideas that maybe this earlier, that there was an earlier civilization that went back a long ways,
That's what they say. I mean, or, well, there's Enoch, right? That before the flood
Mm-hmm.
came, and so supposedly he is the one that. See, Bill, like you know more than I do about all this stuff. So
Enoch would have been one of those things that Von Daniken say that the guy went into a
he was
flying
like,
saucer.
Yeah, he dealt with like the aliens, right? Or he was taught by
Yes.
the aliens. Then he came back with the people, and then he like disappeared, right? After that.
Yeah, so it would be like going in the chariots and then seeing that the earth was a globe or something like that, because there's like 5 books of Enoch, and I believe the Ethiopian Bible is the only one that has the Enoch in it, but in all the rest of the Bibles, the Enoch stories were pulled out. They're referenced in the New Testament, they're referenced in the Old Testament, but they're not present there. And for some reason or other, but like the Catholic Bible has extra books in it, and that the Protestants don't think is necessary to the story, so they pulled those things out, and they left the book of Revelations in, but they should have pulled that one out.
I mean, it's organized. I mean, so many people have put in first oral. I mean, you don't know what is. I mean, it could be all fake, right? From what's in the Bible. I mean,
being a mythology,
mythology. Complete mythology.
Well, yeah, and it can be. And the thing about it is that one of the things
critics say, right? The critics say of Erich is that it can all be whatever he's saying. That's mythology.
Yes, mythology, and it's just mythology, and then I think that if we look at Jesus as an ascended master, Krishna as an ascended master, Buddha as an ascended master, and all these people kind of basically told the same story. Now, whether Jesus was resurrected from the dead or not, I don't know, and I don't think it really matters, because I think that there's Jesus, who the real person is or may never have existed, and then there's mythological Jesus, and the entire Christian theology is based upon mythological Jesus, and not necessarily on if there was a real Jesus or not.
Right.
I
mean, and most of it is for their agenda, right? I mean,
well, there's that, but you look at, like, because one of the things I had thought about when I was in the Holy Lands in '95 was that, now that place was, the energy in that place, that was absolutely amazing, and there were like 21 of us on the trip.
Did you go to Jerusalem?
I was 7 days in Jerusalem.
I went to Jerusalem, and there was a city, is it Sefat or something like that, where the Kabbalah, like there's it's all about Kabbalah there. It's like a little town. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. So
no, tell that story. It's fine. We're
no, but I do understand like that energy that there is there. Yes,
and you have that energy that's there. Mm-hmm. That energy may be there because that land has been celebrated as a spiritual land for so long that the stones radiate that energy, and that all those lives are they're just trapped in those stones, and those stones and everything was, like I can't tell you, but this stone here came from Istanbul. I keep this stone.
Well, it holds on to energy, right? Energy
It does.
is, especially when people like come there and they either pray or, you know what I mean, that energy gets into that area. That's what you feel.
Yeah, and these images have energy in them too.
Yes.
And they have energy in them too, and you know, and they have an energy to them, and you know, and you have these energies. They have these different energies, and
well, that's like a representation, right, of the energy. That's a representation of the energy. So, which is, you know, I do actually, you know, and have angelic experiences too, which some people say are aliens, right? or aliens. But
well,
yeah,
some people, yeah.
But those cards, that's a representation, and then people pray to those cards, and all that energy is, especially in that, in the holy city.
Yeah, and so then there was this monastery that I used to go to all the time. I was thinking if I would like to go there again, but I used to go there all the time, and probably like twice a year, as often as I could afford to go on a retreat there, I would go. If it was like 2 weeks a year, I would do like at 2 different times. I would do that and go. But that place had an amazing energy to it, and so you know, and I could swear this was the truth, that you drive onto the property and it's like you drove into a new world. Now, they'd only been there like praying for like 100 years. They'd been there roughly about 100 years. And then, but you know, you'd be there and you'd go walk on the road, and you go clear up to the highway, and then the energy would change. It would change from peace to chaos. So over a course of 100 years, they changed the spiritual energy of that property. And so much, you can just think, how much would 1,000 years change the spiritual energy of a piece of property? How much would 3,000 or 4,000 years, how much would that do?
Think about it though. Isn't that what, I mean, because I do believe in, you know, our thoughts, like thought forms our energy, right? So I do believe that we can actually change, you know, our environment at 1,000 years or 100 years of, yes, definitely. I agree that that energy can change.
And it can. And so in that same sense, we have, whether or not the Jesus story is true or not, in one sense it is true. But even though Jesus may not have, he could have never existed, and that's possible. But all we had was mythological Jesus, that we had like some guy, and who was maybe in essence and Essene, a Jewish mystic of some kind, and who had a transpersonal experience, and then he was transformed, and then he started, maybe he had a few, you know, whatever, there was a few teachings, but for the most part, most of the things that were taught could have been already present in people's minds, and then like 100 years later, they write it down and into you know, into whatever those gospels are. And then, but there's so many of them, because you know, there were like of the Gnostic gospels, I think there's like 30 of them that survived, and who knows how many more there were, you know. And I think of those gospels, I think the most intact script that they have is from the Gospel of Thomas, and that it goes back to 150. But they do know that there were the Matthew, Mark, and Luke ones existed prior to that, because they've found, like on papyrus, they found like just like a sentence, just words, they don't have a complete script. They don't have a complete gospel of it, but they just have like a word or two in that.
That they have
and
that.
that's what they have. That dates back to, the more complete ones is like the letters of Paul and so forth. But see, Paul never met Jesus, and like another thinker that I have has been profoundly impacted my understanding is that of Richard Carrier, and Richard Carrier is an atheist who talks who a historian, a biblical historian, I guess he is, but he never took a post in a professorship. He just does podcasting, and so he instead of being a college professor someplace, he writes books and he goes on and he does podcasting, and
freedom and
more freedom, yeah. And it would be like, oh, I would like to talk to Richard Carrier, but then he charges like $250 an hour to come on a person's show, so.
Instead, we can just clip it. You could just clip little clips of him, and then you can discuss it.
That's true, and I do. But what in Richard Carrier's mind, because he looks at all these different things, and you think, well, this is like this, and this is like this, or it's like something in Egypt. It's like what in Mesopotamia, and then in his mind, it's perfectly plausible that Jesus never existed. But we created this Jesus guy. We created it because like the essence we created it because this was a mystery religion that other cultures around there had these mystery religions, and then the death and resurrection of God. So that was a pretty common motive theme in that time period, and going back like 1,000 years, and so those were common themes. And so it was like, well, this is the Jewish, just like the holidays. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Yeah. And so you have the mythological Jesus, but what he does say, Richard Carrier does say, is that his belief is that the first incursion of Jesus into our reality came when Paul had a vision of Jesus on the road to Damascus. And that's what he believes, that Paul invented this Jesus. And then from Paul having a transpersonal experience, but he didn't use it that way, but he said Paul had this experience on the road to Damascus, just like it says in those books. And then the whole mythology of Jesus popped out from there.
It could be, yeah, that it's created. It could be that all the gods are created, right? But actually,
yes.
I mean, you could go either way, or that all the gods were created, but there's only one creator above that. Who know? It's like either way. Now, you've actually studied religions and all that. I went to catechism and I daydreamed the whole time I was there.
Yeah.
And I've never done I don't think I've never read the Bible. I've never picked it up.
Oh yeah, I've read it. I've read it 5 times. I think about 5 times, and I haven't read it.
I just know snippets.
I haven't read it I haven't read it. Yeah.
When people discuss things that are, because the right-wing Christians, well, they'll say that's like the devil, or talking about somebody else's religion or whatever. But then it's similar to, they'll explain something in the Bible that's similar to whatever this religion is, That's what I know. But I would daydream in catechism, and when my mom would take us to church on Sunday, I would basically daydream as well the whole time I was there. Yeah.
Well, I do remember being, when I look back on things, and I think I look at the book of Revelations. I remember when I got the book of Revelations for the first time when I was doing Lutheran catechism classes when I was between 9 and like 13 or something like that. I was baptized when I was like 9. I had a transpersonal experience when I was baptized at 9, and that was like the first one. Yes, I did.
Okay. We'll have to talk about those at another.
Well, let's talk about it right now. And where you know, I did the baptism thing, and the pastor sprinkled the water on my head, and I just felt a bolt of electricity come from the top of my head, and it went like right down to the center of the earth, and that's kind of what I felt like. I was this part of this shaft of energy that just came right down through me, and that was my experience.
That's how spirit communicates. Like the spirit world will come through our nervous system, so that energy that you felt, that was going straight through your nervous system, through your body.
Yeah, and then I had an experience. Then like for like a year after that, I was like really super open, and I had the experience of like a telephone line, like every question I had was like answered by this telephone line. And I've had that telephone line thing, I think like 3 times in my life, maybe 4 times. The next time when I was like 17. And I was like, this happened while I was on a lunch break.
So you would be discussing or ask a question, and then you would get like a download or
whatever that would be. I called it it was like a telephone line, and the telephone line was open, and then you'd get the information would come to you. And then the next time that happened was like 17. It lasted like 1 or 2 years, and then. And then after the Israel experience, or somewhere around there was also another one, but you know, there's the telephone line thing. And when I was 17, I saw creation.
You were communicating with spirit at that time, or with other beings, because you were just your human brain used the telephone line idea to like make it more normal, I guess, or what you were doing.
Yeah. And so when I was 17, I saw what I thought was creation, or the created order. You know, it was like there was nothing, but there was just like a singularity of light, and then that light just exploded out, and then all this energy was coming off like little blobs, and then one of them came up to me, and it was like, oh, that's me. That's me.
So were you like this in the day or at night, or was it like?
Oh, that one happened. That one happened when I was 17. I was on my lunch break at school, and I had hit a cigarette habit for a long time, and so I remember I was actually smoking a cigarette while this was happening. It was happening like this, and then between here and there, and it was like I was gone for an hour or more, or an eternity. But then it was only gone for between to here, that time. That was just like one breath, and then within one breath there was all this, you know, where I thought, well, I was being shown this was the creation of the universe, or that we were everybody ever created was created at the beginning, and that our personalities as we were, that was what I recognized was my personality, and that our personalities were created at the beginning, and then here we are.
You saw yourself like in the beginning being created, and you were like, wait, that's me. You recognize
that's me. But then there were all kinds of others. There were like countless others, and countless others. Yeah. So that, yeah. And then I had like another one when I was firefighting. That was more like it wasn't really more. I wasn't really a trans. It was kind of that way, but it was like I was up in the mountains of Wallowa. I had been been it was like after I graduated from college in summer of '94. And I remember being, it was up in, and it was in it. We didn't have much to do on that job because we were doing, because what I was doing in as a firefighter, we did fire lines, and they would go in. The fallers crew would go in, or they would do a back burn, and then they'd go in with the bulldozers. They would go in and they'd do a back burn, and then they would send us in to go cool those back burns down, so that to contain the fire. And so on this one job we were at in Wallowa. Wallowa is in central Oregon, and it's right up against the Columbia, and then you go on to the other side and you're in Washington. But you do have to go over a river first to do this, and so on the other side is and it's in central. So it's like almost like smack dab in the middle between Astoria and Idaho. So and that's kind of, and where Loa is, and so, but it's not that far from Pendleton. Maybe like 150 miles from Pendleton, 150 miles from Portland, something like that. It's just, anyways, I was up in these mountains, and we didn't have anything to do. For 12 hours, we'd be on the job for 12 hours. We go up there, and then half the time we just were sleeping. Because we were exhausted anyway, because we'd been on a lot of different fires, and the crew boss said, "Oh, it doesn't matter. Just whatever. Just do whatever you want. We just make sure you're back here at this time so we can go back to fire camp." And so I was up in the mountains, and I was like looking around, and the peace. It was just silent, absolute silence. Now there had been a burn through there. It was all cool, but then I saw a spirit of a deer. I saw the animals. Yeah, I saw the animals, and I didn't necessarily see them. I just felt that they were there. And then I was watching this column of ants go across the road, and I was just like feeling the spirit of the earth in that column of ants. And that was the experience I had in those mountains, was feeling the spirit of the earth. It was very, very profound. And so I've had these experiences and this communication. And so when someone would come to me with their 4 spiritual laws and that you have to do it this way, I felt like, okay, I just don't know that I can do that, because I've seen this other stuff. How do you put the toothpaste back in the tube?
You can't unsee it. You can't unknow it.
Yeah, that's right. You can't unknow it, and that's it. And so
yeah, I feel the same. It's like, because I've had these experiences, I can't, go back to, thinking that Earth is we're just here, and, we're the only ones here. And
yeah,
I agree.
Well, and see, so there are these different things, but then I was like, the other day, I had an insight, because I had an insight in listening. It was the Mary and Martha story in the Gospels. I
don't know that one.
I can't. Okay. All right. I'll tell you the Mary and Martha story. I have them for the most part memorized, but I don't have, because I've no,
you can talk about whatever. You don't have to, because you don't have to tell the whole story if you don't want to.
I'm gonna paraphrase it for you, but the story is, you have Mary and Martha, and Jesus has come over, and they're not. This is a different set of Mary and Martha. They're sisters, and there's going to be these other people that are going to be coming over. Jesus is there, and Mary is just sitting at the feet of Jesus, and sort of basking in this experience, while her sister Martha is cleaning house and getting ready for a party. And then Martha comes up to Jesus and says, Jesus, my sister isn't helping me. Can you tell her that she needs to be doing this and blah, 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 blah. And then Jesus says, we know, Martha, Mary's exactly where she needs to be. And I interpreted that story just the other day as in, like, we have these different ways of spiritual expression. And you have what they call the exoteric view, and you have the esoteric view. And eso being inner and exo being outer. And so some people, not everybody, some people gravitate towards the inner view, the esoteric. And so this is where you have the whole thing of hidden knowledge. It's not really hidden knowledge. It's just that you have an experience and you are, your experience is more inner, or when we call it like the mystic experience, the spiritual experience, the religious experience, or the occult experience, because it's something that is hidden from view, but it's not really hidden from view. It's only hidden because it's only hidden until you see it.
Right.
So it's not a hidden knowledge. And then we talk about what is hidden knowledge. Well, that's what people don't like about the whole concept of Gnostic Christianity, is because of this experience of hidden knowledge, and then you get, well, but it's not really, it's just a matter is that it's this hidden knowledge is just knowledge that is highly subjective and personalized to you.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree. And so Mary, sitting at the feet of Jesus, was having an experience, and having an experience of this divine realm, of the divinity, or whatever that means. She was having this experience.
Right.
And what does this mean? Well, we don't know what it means. It just means that this guy, James, sees this guy up here lit up like a Christmas tree, lit up like a light bulb. And it seems as though this guy, maybe this is the resurrected Jesus, or it's not the resurrected. It doesn't matter, because, it's that whole Moses on a mountaintop experience, coming down off the mountain and being glowing. But you see, you've had that experience where you felt lit up and you're glowing, and people, or you get close to somebody who has a similar experience, and you both are together and you get lit up and you're glowing together, because, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I could see, it's a shared experience, and that energy, there's a shared energy, right? That you can
Yes.
feel.
Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah.
So you were saying that's where she needs to be, because she was having experience. And what was the sister's name again?
Martha. And then Martha was the person who was very hands-on,
but she was
very practical,
busybody. She was
a busybody. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Jesus is like, Martha, mind your own business. Like, she's having an experience. But
yes, exactly.
The busybody is in her own world, in her earthly world. She couldn't understand what. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our religious paths, that Martha experience exists, and it's okay. The Mary experience exists, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And so it's both experiences are okay, because so it's you are where you're at, and then you ask the questions, and so you want to ignore Tertullian, who in 197 says, you don't ask questions because questions lead to heresy. And this is how people get burned on the stake, because they ask questions. And it maybe leads to doubting, but then it's like you start asking the question, what does that mean? And you grew up in the church. I didn't grow up in the church, but you know that when you ask questions to those nuns, they don't like questions.
They don't like questions. Nope. You had to be quiet and, yeah, that's why I totally went daydreaming all the time, because you had to be like quiet and sitting there and not ask questions and just accept everything that they told you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so while I was sitting in mass, what I saw was I would also daydream in mass when I would, but I would saw that what this was just relaying the information, passing it down through time, but then maybe it's sitting there. It's sitting there waiting for somebody to ask questions and start diving into it to figure out what it means. And so the whole thing of but you can stick on the surface. Now where a lot of people go wrong is they look at these holy books and they elevate these holy books up. And then you say, oh, you can't it's the word of God, and you can't do that. You have to you have to lift it up, and like it's
sin,
magic.
Right? It's a sin to question God. It's a sin to question the Bible. Or
yes, exactly. Yeah. And so you, when you talk about, let's say, this living God, this living thing, well, the only way for it to become alive is you have to dive into it and let it be like a pack of tarot cards, and let it excite your imagination, and let it allow you to channel new information into you. And so that's
how it began, though, right? Like back when in the oral days, like when they would have like those experiences, or when they would get the channeled information. That's what was put into the Bible. But nowadays they want to have control over it, right? So
you want to have you want to have control over the experience, and then when you have control over the experience, you are denying a person their free will.
Yep.
You're denying a person their free will to think what they want to think about it, or to experience something.
Right. And just, it's like being a hypocrite, right? Because then you have those far-right Christians who say that everybody else was going to hell except for them. Or they just spew hate for things that they don't understand, right? Or people that they don't understand.
It's that everybody cherry picks them.
Yeah, they cherry pick, and
everybody does. Myself included. Myself included.
We're all biased, I guess.
we are, because we're biased according to what our experience is, and anyways, this is fascinating.
But, like you said, though, because you will, I think you and I think a lot of people that we know in common, we approach differences with curiosity, with respect and understanding, with compassion and empathy. And I think that our views are not like better or right, and there's wrong. But
that's right, because
a lot of people don't, though. They're just like, you're wrong, you're wrong, or we're the only religion that exists and everybody else is, but it's too bad that we can't really uh, try to understand each other and actually lift each other up. And
Mm-hmm. Well, I
um,
think I think that may be coming when they talk about what second coming is. But I know the second coming to me is something that comes all the time. It's a continual
wait,
thing. And
wait, is it what was it where like all of a sudden I started seeing like on social media people saying that they were going to be, they were what is it
oh, the rapture. Well,
the
raptures
rapture where
are.
they're going to be, yeah, they're like, just try not to be like in the bathroom where you're going to be taken up.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
people were like selling their stuff, and I was just like, well, good riddance. I'm like, I'm like, I'll be
Well,
here
they've
and we're
been
hanging out.
the
I mean, how
rapture.
many times? Yeah, have they done that though?
Well, the rapture theology goes back to the 1860s. It doesn't go back any further than that, and it's very recent. And so
That's
it's
new.
interesting.
That's very
What's
new. I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, it is very new. And what's really fascinating about this is that there'll be groups that claim there is no evolution, but there is all the there is evolution in their beliefs all the time, because you have there's new beliefs and whatever coming out all the time. And so we do, we live in a heterodox, granted that I don't know, it's like
Well, I
we
mean, everything evolves, right? And there's new beliefs, but there's groups that will only, just like they kept things out of the Bible, right?
mhm.
They will just, basically cherry pick, like you just said,
Yeah.
what they want. Yeah. And they'll
Well,
evolve or they'll add things according to how they want it shaped or what path they want to take for their people to take.
what they took is the predominant story that existed, that started like coming out like after the destruction of the temple in 88, which you know after that, and as Paul was going around, there were and I think that what they believe is that the majority story was the worship style of the early Christians was liturgical. So what you get from you get this in the Hebrew religion itself, you get this in Catholicism, you get it in the Orthodox faith. And so I think if you really want to see what early Christianity was like, you go to an Orthodox church. You go to a Russian Orthodox church, or you go to a Greek Orthodox church. And then if you can find a Coptic one, go to one of those. But they're all because the early church is church established was pretty much established around between 320 and 380. But there were these earlier strands. And so what the church based today is based upon the when Christianity was no longer a persecuted religion, when Rome was no longer killing Christians, and it became an established religion in the empire, which started about 320, and that's when they stopped feeding them to lions, and they stopped doing all of those, doing those things, when they stopped killing Christians.
Crazy.
Is around 320, and then the Roman Emperor Constantine had just gathered all the bishops together, and they started working on what it is that they believe, and that started around 320, and then it concluded around 380, and so but it was sort of evolving, and then so they had but the first split happened in the 10th century, and that
Sorry, I
was
just
between.
looked at the comments. I forget to look at those, but Is there somebody waiting for a? Oh, I don't know what that is.
They ask, yeah. And anyway, so it's like you had that first split between the Eastern Church and the Western Church, and the Eastern Church, which is way more mystical than the Western Church is. And because I don't know if you've ever been to an Orthodox Mass, and I mean the first time I went to one, and my first thought was,
I haven't, but I can see how that can be, especially when I went to that little town I told you about. I think it's pronounced Safat, and it was very mystical, the Kabbalah, and anyways, but yeah, go on, or else I'm going to go on my tangent.
Well, that's fine, and then, but it's like we had. I was the first time I experienced one of these Orthodox churches, and my first thought was, and the evangelicals think Catholics are pagans? They haven't seen anything. They haven't been to one of these services before, because you got these people. They would have the doors would be opening and closing, and back in there you had all these people running around, and then you had like these then they have like these sons on staffs and all this stuff, and I'm thinking, oh my God. I mean, it's like, this looks like pagan idolatry to me. It's like, I'm thinking.
I think they would think, but they think everybody, right, is everything else. All the other religions are, witchcraft, pagan. But yeah.
Well, there was like I was like, when I was the other day I was listening to a Dan McClellan. I listened to. There are several biblical scholars that I kind of tune into. There's like Myth Vision, because they have like Elaine Pagels, and I really like Elaine Pagels' work. And
I haven't listened. I don't know any of these people.
And then Dan McClellan was talking about divination the other day, and because I had like you do tarot, you'll get people come in and they'll come in with the Bible stuff, and of course I guess that's probably why I started bringing these things out. So when they started in, I pull out an icon, and then or I pull out something like here, I'll read you something out of here, something like that. Maybe a lot of it is kind of just show, but it works, But anyway, and so I was like trying to formulate an answer for why I think that divination is not it is not the boogeyman that that people think it is. Well, this Dan McClellan guy says, this is material media, and what it is that if you go take this thing and you open it up to a random page and you stick your finger on it and you say, well, how am I feeling today? And you do this to the Bible, and you hit something, and then lo and behold, not every time, but there's a lot of times you do that, and what those words are there are exactly what you needed to hear in that moment.
Bibliomancy.
Bibliomancy, yes, bibliomancy. And so what Dan McClellan said is that he kind of boiled it down. He's a biblical scholar, and it's material media, and you're using a material media in order to gain insight or look into the mind of God. And he's putting it this term: you're using the material media, you're using a divine image, in order to find out, to look into the mind of God. And that's what you're doing. And so when you read the Bible, you are using this book as a means to look into the mind of God. And so if you have your pack of tarot cards, it's the same thing. These are, in some sense, They are divine. It's a material media, and with this piece of material media, you are using it to look into the mind of God. And so, in a sense, but then his conclusion statement is that Christians use the Bible to divine, to look into the mind of God, but they pretend that they do it just like they do in all these other religions or whatever, but they pretend that they're not doing that. It's like you're pretending that you are doing this practice, which is divination, but you're pretending that it isn't. That you're pretending that what you are doing is okay, and everyone else is wrong. And so it's just a matter of you are practicing this, but yeah,
it's kind of that that kind of cult like thinking where they can't see something objectively, like they just only see, like they don't want to see the truth that something can be similar, so they just like, no, I'm not
yes.
looking at that. Yeah.
Well, it all comes down to, can you recognize yourself in the mirror? Do you really recognize yourself in the mirror? When you look in the mirror, are you aware enough of yourself that, or when you do,
I don't think they are. They're not, though.
So when you do your reflection, because the path is constantly getting you to reflect over your life and to see what you're always in it. But one of the things that this is what I guess I learned in studying religion is that you also need to see if you can identify the practices of your enemy in yourself. And so,
yeah, because the whole thing, when you reflect, right, you're looking at all angles of whatever it is that you're reflecting on. But those people that are just stuck on, like, they don't see that they're actually doing the same thing, they're never truly reflecting. It's like they don't even recognize themselves in the mirror because they have like a mask that they put on, and they refuse to see anything else but whatever they choose.
Yeah, and so it's like when you start reflecting and you start seeing your enemies in yourself, then it makes it really hard to hate other people, because they think, oh my gosh, or like, it was like the first time that I know of that I sat down and shared a meal with a homosexual that I knew of. And maybe I was extremely afraid of homosexuals up until that point in time, or before I had coworkers, that it was like, oh well, it kind of dispelled the whole thing. Oh, there's just people, but then you can see yourself in others. And so, because when you grow up in a small town, you are kind of afraid of a lot of things. Or I would say the first time that I saw a person of color, how frightened I was, and stuff like that, and even though I grew up near an Indian reservation, so I was around,
brown
and I have first cousins that are Indians as well, but yeah.
Okay, so which small town did you grow up in?
I grew up in I'm not gonna say it out loud here.
Oh, okay. But so like me being I'm Mexican, so I'm a brown person. So there wasn't any cultural diversity where you grew up. It was kind of, except for like you said, there was an Indian reservation close by.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Well, there was like there was a an African American family that did horse logging. They were here for about, I don't know, 6, 7 years, and then they kind of moved on. The Native Americans in this area don't like African Americans very well. They tend to run them out, and uh, you would think, but
Even
it's that
now or back, like, is this like way back, or you
oh,
mean in the 90s?
even now, it's kind of like that. You know, the Native Americans in this areas were they practiced slavery back in the day, and they were before white man came, they were slavers, and you go up to their they have their powwow grounds, and they talk about and they're pretty open about that. That was part of their culture, that they practice indentured servitude and stuff like that. And a lot of the West Coast indigenous tribes did in the Pacific Northwest. They were slavers, practice slavery.
Yeah.
But that's not. I don't think that was the reason. I don't know why, but I know that. But anyways, I'm kind of getting down on a bad rabbit hole. But I
No worries. I go down those all the time.
Yeah. Well, we've come a long ways away from
The alien.
not talking
Yeah,
about aliens, but that was kind of where we started out at. And
I know, but I can't. It's interesting though. But in a way, though, Bill, like it's all connected. It's still connected. What we were talking about, because it all has to do with um, things, energies, things that can be true, cannot. Depends on. I mean, could
mhm.
it be that we're in our own experience because of the energy forms that we put in, and there we're creating it, or, I mean, it could be. I don't need, like you said, could this world be a simulation? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, because the
Um,
first time, when we didn't really think about that until that movie Matrix came around.
that's true, right? That idea had come out before then. I
Yeah.
don't know.
You know, it,
Do you think that, what do you think of that theory? I don't know about that theory myself, but I haven't really.
I I think it's possible, but where my imagination goes wild at is thinking that I look at the I look at Isaac Asimov. I need to go use the restroom. I'm going to step away for a minute, and then I'll
No
be right
problem.
back.
Sure, no
So
problem.
maybe you can. So with the 4 people out there watching, and I will be right
Yeah, who's
back.
here? Hey, Joe. I only see Joe in the comments, but
Yeah. So I'm going to I'm going to mute my microphone, because at one time I left it open, and that was a huge mistake.
oh yeah, go ahead. Let's see, what's this? Oh, tapestry. Okay, so I forget to talk. I'm like the worst at the lives, so remembering to. But hey, Joe, who else is here? Let me see. I'm not familiar with looking at StreamYard to see if there's other people on here, but let me go on my phone and take a look. Maybe that'll be easier. I've only done like two lives or something like that. Let me see here. Or maybe there's, let me see here. Okay.
All right, here I am back here. Yeah.
All
so,
right. I
anyways,
forgot. I was like totally silent. I joined the. Oops. I joined the comments.
I saw that. Yeah.
Okay. I turned off my phone. All right.
All right. So yeah, we have what were we talking about? Making we were well. What I was like thinking about too is that there's this whole notion of, it's more prominent in the Gospel of Thomas, where you can make things real by this whole manifestation of making things real. Or, if you moving mountains, you can say mountain move and the mountain will move. And so you have that thought line of making things real. What is bound in heaven, binding things in on earth can bind things in heaven. So there's a reflection of nature between spirit world and this world. And then, so when you talk about that, and I talked about that monastery and just the energy that was there, or the energy that existed in the Holy Lands. And I never went to India, but I had a friend who went to India and had a transformative experience. And
I'd like to go to India. I've never been there either. Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to, like, at one time I wanted to go on the whole ancient civilization tour and go up into Peru, or to go see the pyramids in Mexico. I've been in
that,
yeah, just to see what that energy was like. Yeah. And so what was the energy like there?
It felt like very actually, I don't know what it is, but it did feel it. I don't want to say this word because it felt magical. I guess it didn't feel familiar, and it felt like something that I hadn't felt before. But there's like something, I don't know, there is no words that I have to explain it, but probably would be similar to the energy that was in Israel in some of the places that I went to visit. Or when I was in Africa, there was some of this energy as well in some of these, places, older places and stuff. But I don't have the words to explain it. I don't know.
So magical is like the most.
Magical is what I can think of, that it's not normal energy. It's like the spiritual, I guess. Spiritual energy. Felt like there was more energies. There's just a lot of energy in there. Energy that I don't know if you it's like you could breathe it in and feel that energy, take it in. But it just felt, I don't know. I don't have the words to explain it. Other than that.
I mean, other than like you just crossed into a whole different world.
Yeah, because it feels it feels different. It feels like there's like it feels thicker, you know, like
Substantial.
yeah, you know, that's all, you know, I could say. And it's been in those places where there has been like um you know,
UFO sightings.
there UFO or very old places where people have gathered and either had rituals or prayed, so that energy has built up.
So maybe that whole notion of Atlantis being on this continent.
I haven't read too much about Atlantis, so.
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the thoughts of it, was that it may have been not just on this one, that Atlantis was a global civilization, and that came to pretty much to an abrupt end about 12,000 years ago, and where for the most part, what we had 12,000 years ago was the ocean levels, and they think it came up really fast, like in less than 100 years, we had a sea level rise of 100 meters. Is that right? No, it was 300 feet. 300 feet. I think that's 100 meters. It's roughly 100 meters is 300 feet. And so the sea level rose up, and so there was a melt off, and so that we have the flood
Like what's
narratives
happening
that
now? Well, I mean, not as, but where all the icebergs are melting and the sea levels going up.
well, yeah,
I mean, not,
because because there was like, with the glaciers and things, there was like mile high. There was glaciers that was a mile thick. You know, like glaciers that were 5,000 feet thick, and they were most of them in the northern hemisphere. And so and then they melted off, and there was this glacial period that lasted like 10,000 years. But so where you would think of, where would an advanced civilization be? Well, it'd be down near the water, and near the water it was warmer, because and then so where you had and it was this global civilization, and but it wasn't like there wasn't cars, there wasn't things like that. There was probably horses. There were boats, and there were probably animals that they used for pulling carts and stuff like that. Because down in the Amazon, there were like whole roads that exist there, paved roads or something like that. They were paved in stone, but then there was no evidence that there was the wheel. And that's the puzzling thing about the American civilization that they found, is that there are these toys that have wheels that go, but they never found any wheels, like wagon wheels or anything like that, when they're going back and looking. And so then they just assumed that people didn't have the wheels, but yet they had these toys, kids' toys with wheels on them.
with wheels.
And so then they found roads going through the jungle. That they're underneath the jungle. Roads are made out of stone. And so, well, were they just walking roads?
Could they have been waterways where they were
Maybe
rafts would float
maybe.
down?
Well,
Where there was water flowing?
But then there are rafts and waterways already, and so there is stuff like that, and because
maybe these were man-made
well, they
canals.
Road, yeah, they're roads. Too bad my buddy passed away in like about a month ago.
I'm sorry.
We used to talk about this stuff, and because he was like died of kidney cancer. He was 60. I think he would have been 67 this month. And he also came to me like about a month later. And I was like, he went down really fast. But
cancer is terrible. It's I feel like there's so many people impacted. I mean, everybody has multiple people that they know with cancer. It's terrible.
yeah. But anyways, he knew about this stuff. He knew about this stuff, and we would talk about. Oftentimes, we talk about politics and.
So what did he think about there not being any wheels, but that there being toys with wheels and then these roads? What was his theory?
I think that his theory was there was wheels and they didn't survive, and they were made out of wood or whatever, and they none of them, and they either haven't found one yet, or they just never survived. But I think that he probably would have placed that civilization as being not as old as I would have placed it, because he was a lot more skeptical and a lot more rational, and how he would been more like my father, who would not have thought that, maybe a civilization would have gone back 20,000 years, but nothing further than that. And then I guess I got him to a point of where we thought where maybe this whole comet hitting the ice sheet thing and was something that actually happened. I don't know if I did or not, but I got you get him to entertain the whole idea that we had a flood. But then he also brought up that, and it opened my mind to thinking, in this conversation, because also in that time period there was a lot of volcanism that happened, and so it's like, so if a rock hit the earth, you would have a lot of volcanism, because it would upset the whole balance, and you would have massive earthquakes. And if you had a rock that hit, and how was it remembered? Well, what you have is, for years and years and thousands of years afterward, you have everybody scared of seeing comets in the sky.
Yeah, and they wouldn't know it's a comet, right? They would think that it was something like God, or like something supernatural, or an alien or something,
or whatever it was that they were thinking. But they didn't. There was like all this stuff in the mythologies about warning about comets, and so why? And then so if we look into the biblical stories, and I think I look at it as there's multiple stories that point to the same event. You have the flood, you have the Tower of Babel, you have Sodom and Gomorrah. All of these things point to the same thing. And so in the flood, you had this civilization, pre-flood civilization, the Nephilim, the angels, they came down and they saw the human female, and the female was beautiful. They mated with the female, and then these super beings popped out. And so we go to the ancient alien theory. These aliens came, they mated with the human females, and then they created a new creation came into being. And so that would be your Von Daniken thing, and also your Zechariah Sitchin thing, the same thing. But then you have this thing, you have the Tower of Babel, where all the peoples came together and to create this big tower that went up into the sky. Everybody spoke the same language. Well, maybe what that story was about was a previous civilization where everybody spoke the same language, and they built magnificent things that rivaled that of the gods. And then the God came and struck it down and destroyed it. Well, you have the Sodom and Gomorrah story, where these cities, where there was the people there, and then they were, an immoral people or whatever was going on, and then God destroyed these things with fire and brimstone. And what causes fire and brimstone? Now, in the Von Daniken story, it was, well, maybe these aliens, these were these people, and the aliens destroyed these cities with nuclear bombs. But then, well, maybe that's not what happened. Maybe what happened was that rock, that asteroid, that comet hit an ice sheet. It caused a rapid melt off of that ice. Maybe not like a flash flood, but maybe it happened over a course of 100 years. You had the flooding of a lot of different areas. Over a course of 100 years, the sea level went up 300 feet. You had this massive destruction and of a civilization, but then you also had, because of that impact, you had volcanoes going off all over the earth, and then you had like a winter, like the equivalent of a nuclear winter, because there were a lot of these different things going on. There was melting off, and then there was like refreezing and all this turmoil that happens. And then during that time, these people at Göbekli Tepe had the time to bury that entire monument thing. They buried that temple, those structures that they built there, and that stuff that goes. They dated it back to like 11,000 years or 12,000 years. It's probably older than that. But whatever happened, they buried the whole thing. Maybe they buried it to preserve it, but they had the time to do that. So this event that happened, it didn't happen overnight. It happened, and it happened long enough, and it wasn't not like a big planet killer thing, but it happened enough that it caused enough devastation. So we have these flood stories from all over the world. Flood stories. You have the one that's in the biblical narrative. You have the Epic of Gilgamesh. You have the flood narrative there. You have where it talks about what the world was like before, and then the world was like afterwards. And you have all these different things, these different memories, and and then when you are going and looking at your sacred literature or whatever, they use these events as a means of moralizing certain things, to tell certain stories. I don't know. I mean, that's Well,
yeah, tell certain stories and to basically, but to get their agenda, right? Or because it was always about controlling the people and the reason they did the stories was because they wanted their people to act a certain way, and their community to be a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think? I mean, isn't that why
they
have the stories of?
Not necessarily, because there were other things. Because you take like the Native American having stories, or having songs and navigation songs. They had to, all up on the West Coast side, they had they were on their ocean going canoes, and if they let out from Astoria, and then they beat on their drum and they sang this song, and then if they sang it enough verses, then they would be down in Newport, or they would be in Lincoln City. They would be in Newport. If they did it far enough, they can go clear on down, and they'd be in California. And or if you go the other way, then they traveled from Astoria, and they traveled clear up to Canada. But they knew by where they were in these songs, the rhythms of the songs, and then the verses. and going through the verses. So this is, in your sense of your oral tradition, this is a navigation song, a song that had,
So
if you do it within a
map.
specific, yes, a map. And so, because you're looking at in the before time, we stored our knowledge in our head. We stored it through stories, and we don't know exactly what they were thinking when they were remembering these stories, because maybe they were different events, but when you go back and you look back and try to piece things together, well, maybe it was all like maybe it's like what I was thinking is that this is all about this one event that happened, and then all over the world they remembered this one event. I think they had flood stories too down in Egypt, and they had them in Peru, and they had them all around.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Well, I think
I'm pretty tired.
Yeah, I know. I've been talking a long time, and
it's been super interesting though, because I didn't study any of these religions, so it's fascinating. Like, hearing you talk and stuff, and then dissecting everything. I mean, I love doing that. Just contemplating and just seeing and getting to the root and diving into rabbit holes. So this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on here.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm doing a show like this every Friday night, and different topics. So we didn't spend too much time on Erich Von Daniken, but we did a little bit. Just a little bit going into that.
You have to keep me on track. I'm like, I'll go down rabbit holes and stuff, and So sorry, it's my ADHD.
All right, so we're gonna say good night. So you hang on, and we'll catch you on the backside here, and
right.
And so for Joe and for everybody else who tuned in and stopped in to say hello, and then for anybody who watches this on the replay, just put like 3 comments in the 3 comments, like the comments that have tails on them, like the Haley's comment. I think there's some emojis like that. And so you can just leave that in the comment section. Then I'll know if you've actually made it all the way through, or at least you watch this through on double time speed, which is fine,
That's what
and
I
so
do
this,
all the time.
I go through things fast as well. And anyways, thank you guys very much. Blessings and peace to you. And we'll be back next Friday with something else. I don't know what it'll be, but it might be along the same lines, but yeah. And eventually I will gain myself a public phone number so I can maybe have people call in. That's what the goal is here. I just haven't got there yet.
I've heard that there's an app, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll see you all on the other side of YouTube land. We'll see you the next time. And then there's also my program I have on Thursday afternoons with Tarot Asked Backwards, where we've been kind of diving into more apocalyptic type of things. We've been talking about transhumanism and AI for a little while, and we've gone into some of these other rabbit holes, and so yeah. So we have like 2 different viewpoints. I'm a little bit more positive about tomorrow, and other people aren't so positive about tomorrow, but that's just the way it is. And so we're gonna say good night, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.